U.S. has added 14 million new jobs since the Great Recession. A good start. But too many families see the special interests gaining the upper hand in Washington, while paychecks don't go far enough. If you work hard, your paycheck should show it. You earn Social Security. It should be there when you retire. And you shouldn't have to go broke to afford college. I'm Katie McGinty, and I approve this message because it's your turn.
Because qualifications count more than money.
Because my vote is earned, not bought.
Because grassroots power can stop big money.
Because Jamie has always been a progressive.
Because literally, Jamie Raskin wrote the book on campaign finance reform.
And Jamie's the only candidate who's done more than talk.
Because he's the only one who's actually written major progressive laws.
To pass the Green Maryland Act.
To ban military-style assault weapons in Maryland.
Ban the death penalty.
Pass equal pay for women.
Marriage equality for all.
Because no other candidate has that kind of record.
And it's not even close.
Because Jamie Raskin is one of the coolest, smartest, kindest, most passionate candidates I've ever seen.
Because my vote is not for sale.
And we need the kind of progressive that money can't buy.
Because Jamie Raskin represents us.
Why are so many people rotting away behind bars in this country? We have got to do some important things. For a start, we have got to understand that when youth unemployment in America for white kids is 33%, for Latino kids 36%, that's unemployment and underemployment. For African American kids, 51%. What we are going to do is invest in our young people in jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. And when we talk about criminal justice reform, what we are going to understand is that if a police officer breaks the law like any other public official, that officer must be held accountable. Vast majority of police officers in this country are honest and hardworking, and they do a very good job. But nobody is above the law. Second of all, we have got to demilitarize local police departments. Third, we've got to make police departments look like the diversity of the community they serve. In my state of Vermont and nearby New Hampshire, we have an epidemic of heroin overdosing and opiate abuse. Here too, and this is what we have got to understand, because this is a national problem. What we have to understand is that substance abuse and addiction is a health issue, not a criminal issue. Instead of locking people up, we've got to get them the treatment they need when they need it. very important issue in criminal justice. Turns out that over the last 30 years in this country, millions of Americans have received criminal records, police records, for possession of marijuana. It is long overdue for us to rethink the so-called war on drugs. I'm not here advocating for marijuana or advocating against marijuana, but this is what I am advocating. I do not want to see lives destroyed with people getting police records and then finding it hard to go out and get a job or do other things. That's now, it turns out, as some of you may know, that the federal government's Controlled Substance Act as a Schedule I drug lists marijuana right alongside heroin. I hope and pray that everybody here understands that heroin is a killer drug. Now, we can argue what scientists do about the pluses and minuses of marijuana, but no sane person thinks marijuana is the equivalent of heroin. That is why they have introduced legislation that would take marijuana out of the Federal Controlled Substances Act. States have the right to legalize marijuana. 4 states have already done that. But in my view, and that's the business of the states, but in my view, possession of marijuana should not be a federal crime. Let me say a few words about some of the strong differences of opinion that I have with Secretary Clinton. One of them starts with how we fund our respective campaigns and who we are dependent on. When we began this campaign 10 months ago, we had to make a decision. And the decision is, do we do what every other campaign does and form a super PAC and beg the wealthy and the powerful for campaign contributions? That's what we concluded. We spent about 1/10 of a second on that, and then we concluded that we do not represent Wall Street or the drug companies. We do not want a super PAC. Now, that was a very brave thing to do, but the next problem we had is how in God's name do we raise the money that we need? That was a little bit hard. And what we basically did was something pretty simple. We said to the American people, look, if you want to support a campaign and a candidate who is going to help create an economy that works for all of us, not just billionaires, help us out. And the most remarkable thing happened, something that I, honest to God, would never have predicted in a million years. As of today, this campaign has received over 5 million individual contributions. That is more individual contributions than any candidate in the history of America at this point. Anybody here know what the average contribution is? $27. Talk about a political revolution. This is part of what that revolution is about. What we are proving is that, in fact, you can run a winning national campaign without being dependent on Wall Street and billionaires. To paraphrase Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg, this is a campaign of the people, by the people, for the people. Now, Secretary Clinton has chosen another approach to raise money. She has established a number of super PACs. In the last filing report, her largest super PAC reported raising $25 million from special interest, $15 million from Wall Street. In addition, as some of you may know, Secretary Clinton has given speeches behind closed doors to Wall Street firms, got paid $225,000 per speech. Now, what I think is if you're going to get paid $225,000 a speech, it must be a fantastic speech. It must be a speech that could transform this world. It must be Shakespearean. And if that speech is so great, I would hope the Secretary would share it with the American people. Because I think the American people want to know if what she says behind closed doors to Wall Street is the same thing she says to the American people. Another area of great importance that we have a strong difference of opinion on and a very different record. Now, this is not a sexy issue. The media does not talk about it at all. And you can always tell that the more important the issue is, the less the media will talk about it. That's a pretty good one. This is the issue of our disastrous trade policies. By that I mean NAFTA, CAFTA, permanent normal trade relations with China, and many, many other trade agreements. I was elected to the Congress in 1990, and it took me about 8 seconds to figure out that these trade agreements would be a disaster for American workers. They were written, not to shock all of you, they were written by corporate America. And what their goal was to say, why should they pay workers in Missouri or Vermont $20, $25 an hour working in a factory when they can shut down here, go to Mexico, go to China, go to low-wage countries, and pay people there pennies an hour. And that, of course, is exactly what has happened. Since 2001, we have seen over 50,000 factories in America shut down, millions of workers have lost decent paying jobs. Now, I have, from day one, been a leader in opposition to these disastrous trade policies. Secretary Clinton has supported virtually all of them. Now, as a result of a lot of pressure put on her by the trade union movement, and every union in this country is opposed, as I am, to this Trans-Pacific Partnership. That's right. Now, I was one of the early leaders in opposition, but as a result of a lot of pressure, Secretary Clinton eventually came out against the TPP. That's the good thing. Just the other day, she says she wants to make it tougher for automobiles to be imported to this country under the TPP. Well, that's good. But the truth is that is not good enough. That whole agreement stinks. We got to kill it. It's all over. Vietnam is part of the TPP. The minimum wage is 65 cents an hour. You know what? I don't think American workers should be forced to compete against people who are working for 65 cents an hour. That's wrong. Our message to corporate America is if they want us to purchase their products, they better start manufacturing those products in Missouri, Vermont, and in America. All of us want to help the poorest people in the world, but you don't have to destroy the middle class of this country to help poor people abroad. Another issue. Everybody here understands that one of the very important duties of the President of the United States is to conduct sensible foreign policy. In 2002, we had a debate in this country over the most important foreign policy issue that we have seen in the modern history of this country, and that was over Iraq. I listened very, very carefully to what President Bush and Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, all these guys had to say. I listened very carefully because when you're dealing with war and peace issues, you know that there are people in your own state who are going to go off to war and will not come home alive. So I listened to that debate and I concluded that the President Bush and Cheney were not telling the truth. I voted against that bill. Secretary Clinton was in the Senate then. She heard exactly the same evidence that I heard. She voted for that law. Now, the reason that we are doing well in this campaign and why we have the energy and why we have the enthusiasm is that we are spending our time listening to the American people, not listening to wealthy campaign contributors. In fact, we have had meetings like this all over this country, and if my memory is correct, over 600,000 Americans have come out to meetings like this. When we listen to the people, this is what they tell us. Working people tell us they cannot make it on $8 or $9 an hour. They tell us that the minimum wage of $7.25 is a starvation wage, and that wage has got to be raised to a living wage. living wage is $15 an hour. This campaign is listening to senior citizens. And what senior citizens are telling us and disabled veterans are telling us, they can't make it on $11,000 or $12,000 a year Social Security. Republicans want, in most instances, to cut Social Security. I've got bad news for them. Not only are we not going to cut Social Security, we're going to expand Social Security. This campaign is listening to women. And what women are saying is, how does it happen that they go out and get a job and they end up making 79 cents on the dollar compared to men doing the same work? I know that every man in this room will stand with the women in the fight for their equity. This campaign is standing with the African American. Everybody else in America is telling me they are tired of seeing unarmed people shot and killed. This campaign is listening to our Latino brothers and sisters. Telling me that they are tired of living in the shadows, living in fear. They want comprehensive immigration reform. And they want a path toward citizenship. Congress does not do its job, I will use all of the executive powers the President has. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the Native American community. Americans have been lied to and cheated for centuries. As unelected president, they will be treated with honesty and respect. This campaign season, you got a lot of Republicans running around your state, running around the country, talking about family values. I want everybody here to be very clear about what Republicans mean when they talk about family values. What they mean is that no woman in this room, in this state, in this country should have the right to control her own body. I disagree. they mean when they talk about family values is that our gay brothers and sisters should not have the right to be married. I disagree. Jane and I have been married 27 years, we have 4 kids, 7 grandchildren. And we believe in family very, very much, but when we talk about family values, it is very different than what Republicans say. And we point out, and this again is thinking outside of the box and asking a simple question. We ask, how does it happen that we are the only major country on earth that does not guarantee paid family and education? When a mother in this country gives birth, she should not be forced to go back to work in a week or 2 because she lacks the income. And that is why, together, we're going to pass legislation guaranteeing 3 months paid family leave. Several weeks ago, I was in Flint, Michigan, and what I saw there was literally beyond comprehension. In the United States of America, in the year 2016, children are being poisoned by lead in the water, in a water system which has broken down. Flint may be the worst case, but we have water systems all over America that are not functioning well. We have wastewater plants, we have roads. In my state, many of our bridges are in disrepair. That is why I have proposed $1 trillion to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. Put our people back to work. I am a member of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Environment. I have talked to scientists all over the world, and let me tell you what they are telling me. Climate change is real. It is caused by human activity. And if we as a nation do not get our act together soon, a very bad situation will become much worse. We have a moral responsibility to leave this planet in a way that is healthy and habitable to the next generations. We have got to take on the fossil fuel industry. And to tell them that their short-term profits are not worth it compared to the future of this planet. Everybody here knows that we're living in a competitive global economy, and you also know that hundreds of thousands of bright young people cannot afford to go to college even though they're qualified. That is wrong. It is wrong for those young people. It is wrong for the future of our 2016, when we talk about public education, it is not good enough to be talking about first grade through 12th grade. The world has changed, the economy has changed, people need more education. And that is why I believe that we must create a situation in which public colleges and universities are tuition free. And we have also got to significantly lower the horrific burden of student debt. Millions of people are experiencing. Now, sometimes my critics say, well, Bernie, that's a great idea. You're Santa Claus, you're a nice guy. How are you going to pay for this? I will tell you how we pay for it. All of you know that 8 years ago, Wall Street's greed and illegal behavior destroyed our economy. Congress bailed them out. Well, I believe that now is the time to impose a tax on Wall Street speculation.